Welcome to Wise Gifted and Black, a podcast where we educate and celebrate Black and urban culture. Now let's get it.
All right, you ready? All right, we're recording. Mic check. Let's go. Welcome to Wise Gifted and Black. I'm here with my cousin, actually. And Nazar, the reason why I've got you here is because out of all of my the people that I plan to have on this podcast, you're one of the most interesting characters, you know. So I asked you when I spoke to you and I asked you, look, can you do this for me? You're like, yeah. But I want to talk about this project that I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Now, to the people out there, a little bit of a background. I'm from Malawi, Southern Africa. Nazar's also from Malawi, Southern Africa. We've run like very parallel lives. So that's why, to me, Nazar is my older brother. And we come from a clan, I would say, called the Osmans in Africa. Quite a big clan. And I think in this podcast of mine, I'm going to have more of these characters. So without further ado, everybody out there, this is Nazar Osman. Nazar, just give us a quick intro into your story, mate.
Wow, what an honorable introduction. Thank you very much, young blood.
Thank you, sir.
Definitely an honor to be here and looking forward to, just having a chat, I suppose.
Yeah.
Originally, of course, from Malawi, like you just explained. Grew up for my latter years in Zimbabwe, moved to London, and then been in Australia for 17 years.
Yeah.
So definitely been an interesting journey. I'm sure a lot of people have done that, especially if you're coming from Africa. You're definitely going to end up in different parts of the world, Canada, some in New Zealand. So, the world takes us to different places.
Yeah.
And
it's funny
I'm here,
how
grateful.
Yeah, it's funny how like maybe about 5 years ago when you came to Malawi on holiday, we were chatting about Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
Next thing you know, I'm here in Australia with you. And
well, as you said, it's really interesting because I know you reminded me about that before. But what a coincidence that we did. I came to Malawi about 5-6 years ago and just randomly talking about, it'd be nice to have you in Australia. And here you are.
Yeah.
And now we're doing a podcast. So.
That's life and its journeys, mate. Life and its journeys.
There you go. You take it as it comes. But definitely nice, man. I'm really happy for you.
Thanks,
I'm glad you're getting this underway. And it's really important, just to get our voices out there.
Yeah.
Especially in this global forum, a global community.
And especially in this time,
Yeah, exactly.
It's a crazy time. And speaking of, how's Queensland, man? What's happening that side?
To be honest, I heard today that we've recorded 3 cases.
Oh, yeah?
So that's put everybody a little bit on red alert. I think it's in Brisbane that they recorded the cases. I have no idea. Please don't quote me on that, but this is just hearsay. Yeah. Everybody's talking at the moment. So, you know what I mean? That's just how information's getting passed. But yeah, there's still border controls between New South Wales, Queensland. You still got to get permits. Those are valid for 7. I mean, in Queensland, to be dead honest, it's not as restrictive, or I should say Southeast Queensland. I'm in the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
So it's not as restrictive as say, Melbourne or Sydney. You can move about a little bit. I go to the beach. There's things that I do that, I can go to shops. I can go to a cafe. So we've still got those those little things that we can do, but everybody is alert and everybody is trying to do the right thing because it is serious. I mean, everybody was talking the first time. There's a whole lot of conspiracy theories out there.
Yeah.
How it started, whether there is a cure, there's no cure. Lately, there's been that Nigerian lady, doctor in the States, that has come out quite vocal.
Yeah.
To be
honest,
she's talked about
some of the stuff that she said is a bit like, I'm a bit worried about some of the stuff that she said. But I mean, look.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. At the moment, because of access to information, everybody's got a voice, and what she's saying, you can't, like nobody said, she's not telling the truth. She said, I've cured over 300 people. Nobody's died. And this is what we're curing them with. But again, it's a dangerous road to go because it is taking a lot of lives, and we do have to be quite conscious about what's going on.
Yeah. And you know what I find a bit annoying right now is the amount of noise from, you go on your social medias and stuff, like noise is just coming from every angle. You know, it's like scientists
out there, my man. That's what's going on at the moment.
If there's one thing from this pandemic that's taught me is that, you know, people that in society that I've looked at, that I've known for years, have on Facebook have come up with these crazy conspiracies. And I used to think, and I always thought, like, you know, I thought that guy was like a very intelligent stand-up guy. And, you know, I'm rethinking that one day, you know what I mean, on some of these characters.
It's becoming quite political. Even you becoming quite outspoken.
I know.
Let's be honest. I've seen some of your posts and I'm going, hey, okay,
I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. And it's worse.
That's what I mean. You know,
and everyone's a professional. You know what I mean? Everyone's a professional today.
You see?
You know?
Well, we've got some professionals that are really pushing a lot out there. So, you know what I mean? There's a whole lot going on. And, you know, from Queensland perspective, or Southeast Queensland, at least the lockdowns haven't been too harsh on us in terms of civil liberties.
Yeah.
But, you know, economically, man, you know, let's not even go there. You know, I'm looking at the price of gold soaring. I'm looking at businesses closing.
Yeah.
It's hectic.
It's crazy.
It's
now, you guys are saying you had 3 new cases today, as of today, while we're doing this podcast. Victoria has recorded 723 cases in one day.
There you go. So that gives you a perspective.
Yeah. So and people keep saying this is the second. This is not the second wave. For us, this is the first wave. Because the first time it never really hit Victoria, but this is hit us hard now. So now it's everybody wearing a mask. I think on Monday it's going to be the whole of Victoria. Because first it was just Melbourne. Yeah. So now everybody's just going to be masked up but I mean, I think the one thing that's interesting in this whole thing is you can't really control what's happening outside of you. Just control what's inside your own environment. You know, you've got control over that.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone's adapting.
Yeah.
You know, I've got kids across the border in New South Wales.
Yeah.
You have to adapt, you know, every time I got to apply for permits, I got to watch, you know, who I'm interacting with here, who they're interacting with. You know, you just got to be conscious about what you're doing, and play your part. But there's, you know, it's definitely been a big shift. There's no two ways about it. You're looking at, you know, even within the family nucleus at the moment, there's a lot of stress. Money is a stress. You know, now a lot of families, not here, but I know I was speaking to my brother there in London, and he was telling me about how they just don't move.
Yeah,
you know, everything's just done in the home, 24/7. And you know, London, we live there together.
Yeah.
Those houses are tiny.
And it's funny how family dynamics, I'm going to talk about actual families. There's some families that I've seen being strengthened by this pandemic. And there's some families that I've seen just completely go apart. I know a family who got teenage daughters, a teenage daughter and a teenage son. And the kids were always on the iPads and the things. And now, because they're spending more time with the children, I think they're actually getting to know the children. The children enjoy spending time with the parents. The kids are less on that, and they got this family time that, because the parents are both professionals, so they're spending time at home, and that's actually strengthened them. And then I've got a polar opposite of an example with another family who have just gone completely both professionals. Now they have to spend this time together. And, you know, one person is completely moved out the house and gone to another house and stuff like that. And
yeah, well, exactly. So there's definitely a lot of that going on. No two ways about it, because I mean, like we're talking about, the pressure's definitely on.
Yeah.
On the family, you know, there's 2 ways of looking at this thing. You know, the first time there was definitely panic, but there's either you can adapt and look at the positives about it, which is you do get time, something that not a lot of people had. You know, I've got a lot of friends. Their days were busy. You know, morning kids, then yoga, then work, then this,
exactly.
then that. They get home every day, 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. You know, that was their normal.
Yeah.
And then they had this free time, and they were complaining the first time. They were like, "Oh, you know, I can't handle this." But you know, lately when I've spoken to them, they're really enjoying the fact that they can work from home. They've got time to do stuff. You know, some of them do. Some of them go in, that can go into work. Just depending on the industry in as well, you know. So it just depends, how you adjust to it. You can either look at it positively and go, okay, listen, I'm going to try and do stuff around the house. There's a lot of renovations happening this time. So, a lot of people are doing renovations at the moment. There's a lot of time on their hands.
Starting up music careers and starting up podcasts.
Creativity is out there at the moment. A lot of people are getting creative, whether it's painting, whether it's making, recycling, upcycling, whatever you want to call it.
It's funny.
You just got to keep moving. And because a lot of people have lost work, you're now starting to think, well, how else am I going to earn, another sort of income, or how, that's just the way it is at the moment, because the bills keep piling up. That's not going to stop. So
when I went to store DJ, whatever, to go and buy this equipment to start up this podcast, I was chatting to the guy there, and I was like, I was wondering, like, hey, how's business been? Because I always ask, how's business been? And he's been like, man, we've been killing it. They've actually done really well, because everybody wants to start a podcast. Everybody wants to start up their music careers again, because now you got time at home.
Exactly.
So they picking up the guitar, picking up the drum machine, and starting things up.
Well, you're doing
again.
things that you never, what this thing has done for me personally is I wanted to go back home in April just for a quick holiday.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned.
And now, of course, nobody knew how wide or how quick this would spread, or how an impact it would make on our lives. There was hearsay, but then when things went into action, restrictions came about, and then all of a sudden you couldn't leave the country.
Yeah.
And until now, we don't know when the borders are going to open.
Yeah.
So it's made me realize, for me personally, little things like I want to do things that otherwise I didn't have time to do, or I thought, I'm going to put off until another time. I know definitely when those borders open, I want to go to Cuba. There's no two ways about it. Because I've been procrastinating about things like that. Or, little things like, on the skydive.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to a situation where nobody can skydive anymore and nobody can do it. And all because I was just procrastinating, which I've done in the past.
Yeah.
I've always thought I had time. You can do it now. You can. I can always go to Africa. I can always go to Cuba. Now I can't. So it's definitely put things into perspective.
I don't know. Maybe, I would say maybe the last 50, 60 years on Earth, 70, 80 years, I don't think, apart from times when there's world wars and stuff, I don't think people have reached a point like this year where it's proven that life can be so fragile. Life can really be like quite fragile. We don't know what's happening tomorrow. Like, everybody's going through that anxiety about not knowing what's happening.
Yeah, but there've been, pandemics like this, and
not to this level. I mean, obviously not to this level.
There are. Everybody always talks about the Spanish
flu. Yeah.
There's the Great Depression of the 20s, the stock market crash.
Yeah.
Economically. So there've been these kind of things in the world. But I think what's the difference now is that we have access to information.
Uh-huh.
So when something like this happens in one country, everybody, people in Africa can see how many cases there are in America. Whereas, the time of the Spanish flu or the stock market, nobody knew what was going on,
And plus, because we're a global world,
exactly.
The things spread it much quicker because there's lots of people traveling and going around the world. It's not like back in the day,
So panic happened, all of a sudden everyone went, we need toilet paper. So all went, what? Toilet paper. Hand sanitizer. That's where it's at the moment. So at least now everything's calmed down a little bit. People are now thinking, there's others going, okay, listen, what do we need to do to make sure that, we play our part, which is important.
Yeah.
Because, borders closed. I'm glad that Queensland actually shut its borders early, to be dead honest. Well done to the Premier of Queensland for that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, man, and we record 3 cases. You guys got 700
today.
That's just today for
today.
you guys.
That's today. Yesterday was 200 and something. We've had numbers in the last week and so of around 200 to 300 numbers. Today was just a big number. It's really scaring everybody. So. Yeah. In the family home, the anxiety levels are raising and stuff like that. And this also brings me to our conversation and the reason why we wanted to discuss this project of yours. What's when families are separated through divorce and stuff like that, there is examples that I've seen where like the other side or the other one partner will say, one ex-partner at the time will say, look, I don't think you should pick up the kids and stuff like that. I mean, is that a fair one to put because of this pandemic? Or
again, it's really, whenever it comes to kids, it's a really hard decision because you have to have an element of trust between two. You got to trust that the other person is going to do the right thing and you are going to do the right thing and they're going to trust in you. And that's where it happens. Now, sometimes, I'm not going to get into the dynamics of why, or what if, or because there could be many reasons why.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about now, this COVID is real. It is out there. We have to be careful about who we hang around with or who we interact with.
Yeah.
And it's, depending on where you are, again, it's especially at this COVID time, it is a tricky situation because there has to be a lot of patience and understanding between both parties.
Yeah.
It's not a normal thing that we've been thrust into at the moment. So communication has to be key, like in all fairness, this COVID has put a lot of tests because you were talking about what we were talking about earlier. And I did some research in before the COVID, just about what happens in the family home when it comes to kids.
Yeah.
Especially in homes that you got single parents and they want access to kids, whatever. There's always been that, what's the word? That pressure or that it needed to be spoken about.
Okay.
It wasn't happening. There was a lot of depression and anxiety going on in especially among men in Australia.
Because I also heard about this to say that men are 10 times more likely to commit suicide through these, after divorce than women. I don't know how true this is. I might be because I read this somewhere. And I think also when I looked at that, I don't know whether if that figure is true, I don't know whether that figure is true because men are just, they just don't handle it well, or is it because women just have a lot of support systems way more than men, and men do not turn to support systems? Is it one of those things where men just kind of like, nah, I'll deal with it internally?
Yeah. I hear you. And I got to be straight up now when I say this. My opinion is purely based on my experience.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no medical background to what I'm going to share with on this podcast. There's like, I can only speak about what I've experienced, and hence the project that we were talking about earlier, which is men's suicide in Australia, and just addressing that issue. Only because, I've been here for 17 years. I was married, been divorced now for 8 years, and I've got 3 kids from that marriage. And I went through certain experiences, like everyone does. Most men that are separated from the family, or they separate from the marriage and become single dads, depending on the communication between both parties, that determines how things can flow. But at the end of the day, what's important to understand is it is all about the kids.
Yeah.
So as you grow as people, you start both. First, there's that bickering, understandable. But then as you grow as people, you realize, hey, hold on. There's a bigger picture. It's not about us. We have made our decisions as adults, but this is about the kids or the kid, irrespective. So I started doing a diploma in filmmaking, actually, about 4 months ago. It's my second trimester.
Yeah.
And one of my projects was, just to do a little 4-minute drama, doco kind of style, whatever I wanted to do, and to do the screenplay and all that for it. And I decided to attack men's health simply because, and men's suicide in particular, because when you come from, our societies, especially here in the West or in Africa, as you know, men are told to deal with things, deal with it. You know what I mean?
That's the thing about our culture as well.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for men and women with African culture. Number one, we both think all as Africans, we don't like dealing, especially with things that got to do with mental health. Number one.
Yeah, but
number two,
when we say deal with things
worse.
when I'm saying deal with things more from the man side of you, you're right. But with women, even in Africa, to be dead honest with you, is that women will talk, and because they nurture us, they're more honest with the way they feel with each other. So they can discuss those issues, if they're having a problem at home or whatever.
Exactly.
Whereas we as men, we find it hard to go and talk to someone about those issues. So even when there's stuff going on at home, we just automatically we're going to, okay, well, you're a man, you're going to have to deal with this. That's what a man does. You deal with it. And how you deal with it determines what kind of man you are. So sometimes, there's this notion that, if you don't get to see your kids, then you're not much of a man or whatever. But everybody's under different circumstances when it comes to that particular issue, when it comes to kids. So with men's mental health in particular and suicide, a lot of men don't talk. A lot of men don't seek that help. We always feel like, hey, let's just deal with it on our own. It's something that we're going to deal with. And especially men coming from Africa. And I would say cultures, I can't speak for other cultures, but I would say cultures similar to ours in the sense that we don't really have counselors. We don't go talk to psychologists or psychiatrists about our issues or what's going on.
Yeah.
No, we don't. So we're not used to that off the offset. I remember the first time I did that. It was such a foreign thing for me to go and talk to somebody who I'd never met about personal things. So it took me a while, until I got to the realization that, hey, hold on. If I just go in there and just talk about random stuff, I'm wasting that person's time and my time, and I'm not really dealing with stuff. And the more I opened up and actually spoke about what was going on within me, then it was easier to
tackle the issues as well. Yeah,
exactly. Because I wasn't bottling it up.
Yes,
I was able to talk about it and go, know what? Okay, this is what's happening. I don't think, and then get an opinion, and then I'll go, okay, so this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. And so a lot of us men here in Australia in particular, we don't seek that help. Those of us that do, well done. But then there comes also that thing about communication. Now, I'm not a marriage counselor, but I now understand communication is really key when it comes to these matters, especially when it comes to kids. And sometimes we do try and bring the past into those kind of conversations, and then all of a sudden it becomes an argument or whatever the case may be. Whereas if we just make it, focus on it being about the kids.
Yeah.
And one thing a lot of the mediation things taught me is that I, or the mother of my children, my ex-wife, don't have any rights over the kids. The kids have every right to spend time with us. But we don't have a right to spend time with the kids. So I remember I used to always say, but I haven't seen the kid for a month, don't I have rights as well to see the kid or my kids? And I was told, no, you don't. However, the kids have every right to have their father in their life. And this is where communication.
I get you.
Exactly. You see, so this is where now that communication with your ex-partner is important from a man's perspective.
Yes.
And sometimes that ex-partner might not want to communicate. Some of them just don't want to hear from you. They don't want to have nothing to do with you. And that's fine. That's fine. Don't make it about them. That's what I've learned. Make it about the kids. At the end of the day, you have to come up to some sort of agreement, or you have to speak. You're always going to have that bond of the child. So even if initially you don't speak and it's not right, fine, seek other help. There are mediation services out there that are really amazing. They sit down with you guys, both parties on a one-on-one. They work out a parenting plan that works for both people. And, from a guy's perspective, if you can understand that it is important for the woman to get into some sort of a system, some sort of a routine.
Yeah.
Because they got the child all the time.
Okay.
So we have to also learn to go, okay, there is a routine. However, it's important for my child to also see me and for me to be a part of that routine. What can I commit to realistically? Because that, if it's every week or every second week, every Wednesday, every second week, then commit to that. But, it can't be a situation where you don't speak or see the child for a month and then you pop up and you go, I want to see my child for 4 hours and then disappear for 2 months.
Yeah.
It becomes, then it's not in the benefit of the child. Well, I can't say that. Sorry.
Okay.
I shouldn't say it's not in the benefit of the child because it's just my opinion.
Yeah,
my opinion is that
from your experience.
My experience is that that's what it made me do. Yeah. What it made me do is I knew that when I thought, okay, how am I going to really see my children? I knew I had to support that routine and then place myself in the routine and decide what can I commit to. And whatever I committed to worked out perfect because what that meant is that the kids were used to a routine. They knew this time is dad's time, this time is mom's time, and so once you work together for the kids, much easier. Yeah. But yes, of course I went through those stages where you go through depression and you especially being in a foreign country. Yeah. It was absolutely
I don't know if I'll agree with you at that because I've also had my first divorce was in Malawi and in Africa and yes, I did have family and friends around, but I was going through a lot of stuff then, and I did not know how to deal with it. And everybody was just like giving me this kind of like abstract advice that was like, "Oh, don't worry, one door closes, another door will open." I'm looking at them like, "Oh, fuck you! You don't know me." I felt like slapping the hell out of them. Yeah, but like here, I feel like there is that support. But, look, part of this podcast as well is to educate men like us out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is the reason why we're talking about.
Well, what's the name of your podcast?
Wise, Gifted, and Black. And don't worry, it's all in the beginning.
Let's just stick to the motto,
Yeah. Let's educate and celebrate Black culture. That's basically what we're doing. But here's the thing: is that sometimes, Nazar, people, I won't say people. I'll say some men out there are different from the way me and you think. Right. Some people got their egos. Some men got bigger egos, and we all do. Yeah. And some divorces are different, and some of the women they're dealing with they're different as well. You could have a situation where the woman cheated on the man, and the man now's got the ego, and the ego is there, and he can't let that go, and he can't deal with it. Or there's other situations where, as I said, there's just a woman that's hard to deal with, and then the guy is just gonna like, nah, this is it. I go that direction. So, what's your advice to somebody who you believe would have, just from your experience? What would your advice be to someone that's going through something like that, and using that excuse not to deal with the issue, like using that excuse like, she did me wrong. Why should I mediate? Why should I go through mediation? Why should I talk to her and all that? What would you advise someone that's going through?
Well, this is the thing is, we've got to understand that a relationship is just a relationship. It's between two people. You come together, and then life moves on as well. Sometimes you're going different paths. It happens, right? That's normal. But as I say, when it's about kids, make it about the kids. Don't make it about you. Don't make it about what happened with you and your ex-partner, or whatever faults she has.
Take yourselves out of it.
Take yourselves completely out of it, because you've got to heal with you first. That healing process is, you got to deal with you first. Once you understand your self-worth, stop feeling the victim. Don't play the victim. Get up. You know what I mean? Yeah. As other people say, man up.
Yeah.
So you man up. And then you realize, okay, now I'm feeling a little bit better about myself. What happens next? You can either focus on, my ex is like this, and my ex won't let me do this, and he's being like this, and he won't do this, or she won't do this. There's a lot of that goes on. And in relationships, it's really hard, I'm not going to play the devil's advocate on this one.
Yeah.
There's so many dynamics.
Exactly.
There's men that just don't step up and just want to pitch up whenever they want to. There's women who use kids, against the men. There's all these dynamics that happen. But when that's happening to you, if it's happening to you, say you have that sort of partner who does manipulate and abuse you to a certain extent mentally, then you take a step back. I know it's easier said than done, but really take a step back and just evaluate and don't make the conversation about her. I'll never forget. Part of that documentary was actually based on something that happened to me in real life. I was walking with our cousin.
Okay.
In Hyde Park in Sydney. This is a true story, yeah? I'll never forget this one. And we're walking down. There was a friend of mine as well. He was from France. We're coming from some pub or something. I can't remember. And we were walking down, and of course, he had a joint in his hand. And he's like, "Hey, man." We're all smoking. And then now this is in the park. All of a sudden we can see this blue and red light, and there's a cop car. And I'm thinking, damn. So of course we put it out quickly. It was about 100 meters, so we knew I can't smell it, but we could see where he was. And we were going to his direction, and he was like coming to meet us on the park, So it was one of those, hey, you're a black man, it's Hyde Park, man. It's Australia. There's a lot of things going on in your head. So, anyway, walking down, and he stops us. And we're like, okay. But anyway, are you going, boys? Yeah, nice, chatting. And then he says, yeah, I noticed you guys are having a conversation. What's going on? And just then I think one of us said, he's going through a divorce at the moment, a separation. So we're just talking about, just life and women and, And he actually took off his badge and his hat, and he says, come, let me sit down with you guys. True story. And he had an American accent. Anyway, long story short, I was moaning, of course. I opened up because, like I said, sometimes you just want to open up and just talk about these things. And I opened up and I was like, hey, And he was like, okay. And he says, let me ask you something. He says, if someone's standing in front of you, yeah, and they're punching you, they keep punching you, bang, 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 and they keep hitting your nose. He says, why do you think they're hitting your nose spot on every time? And I couldn't find out. I don't know, blah, 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 nothing. He says, because you're letting them. He says, but if you just move your head to the side, then every time they hit, they're missing you. And that was a metaphor that he was explaining to me, to say sometimes when you're in a relationship, your other half or your ex, or you know what I mean, can say some really hurtful things. And if you keep taking them on, then you keep getting hit in the face. But if you just let those hurtful things, you just turn them to the side and focus on what you need to focus on, which is now communicating effectively and respectfully for the betterment of the growth of you and well-being of your child, then that's how you move your head to the side.
Yeah.
So it's important for us men to know not to just stay there and keep, not only men, but whoever's involved in those relationships.
Just keep on getting hurt.
Always just get hit in the face. You know what I mean?
You're just going to keep on getting hurt. Just turn.
That's it. So you're going to get a lot of that. Oh, that woman is like this, or that man is absolutely useless. What kind of a man is he? That woman, who does she think she is? Blah, 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 da, da. There's a lot of that. But the reality is, it is a big issue among men in Australia. Men's suicide. There's a lot of figures that are thrown up there. There's organizations. There's, Beyond Blue. There's 21 Fathers. That have a wealth of information to help men through these situations. And I think it's really, really important, especially among our African men here. Our brothers here. It's really important to seek that help. No man is an island. No man can stand alone. So it's important that, when these kind of things happening, talk to other people that have, gone through a similar experience, just to get, some knowledge of how you can deal with it. Yeah. It's not easy when you leave your home as a man, because you leave your everything that you've worked towards, and your heart, your soul is all in that home. So when you leave, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, it's easy because you're single now. There's nothing more empty than when you're used to laughter and kids and everything, and then you go into a house and it's empty. So there's nothing nice about that. There's a lot that goes on.
There's that weird thing that happens in your mind where you think the grass is green on the other side, kind of thing, but when you get there, you're like, no, man, this is lonely. This is not right. There's
True.
a weird.
Well, it depends why the relationship broke up, because sometimes women just, the other party, in this sense, the woman decides, she's on a different path.
Exactly.
You're on different paths. I remember one wise woman, my mom, once told me to say, one of the hardest things that she learned when she went through divorce is accepting rejection, she called it.
Yes.
Accepting the fact that the other person does not want you anymore. Just accept that. A lot of our egos don't want that. Oh, but maybe it's because of this. No, people just grow.
I think
it's okay, like...
The other gem your mom gave me was... because says, when people come and say sorry to you, don't worry about it. Don't worry about people saying sorry to you. She says, people don't divorce because they're happy with each other. There is a reason why. So if they come and say sorry, say, no, don't worry, I'm good. We don't separate because we were having a good time. So it's just one of those that.
And these are the little things that you learn. Like I said, you can learn from the differences, as long as you can take all that in, people's experiences, and learn from them, and understand that, especially in Australia, there is help. There is help out there. If you want to see your kids, there is help. Go and see, these groups these mediation groups that try and mediate.
Yeah.
It's important that when they give you a meeting time, go to the meeting.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of characters that they say, okay, 2:00 on a Thursday, they don't pitch up. And they don't even have the decency of calling and saying, hey, listen, can I reschedule? I can't make it. So there's all these things that we have to tackle as men. We have to be honest about.
And that reflects on you as well. That does reflect on you as well.
Of course, I'm not saying all men do that, but I'm saying for us for the men that do that, understand that those are the repercussions. The repercussions are, you might not have time with your child, or very limited time, that even if you wanted more, because it gets to a certain point that now you have to start proving yourself. If you've been out of your child's life for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, well then...
It's hard to make up for that, man.
Yeah, well, you can't make up for it.
Yeah.
But it's about how the child feels now about having you in their life, and, does that mean you stay and you leave, or... There's a lot of things, I just wanted to focus on the fact that when we are in a relationship, it's important to communicate, and it's important for us men to understand that there is avenues and there is support, whether it's if we're going through things mentally, whether it's suicide, whether it's depression, there is help out there. There is, talking to people is really helpful. Now, I'm not saying talk to anybody, but, sometimes just talking to that somebody, that anybody helps.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot, you never know who you speak to. You never know who you might come across, and they might share something that you might go, oh, wow, look at that. I spoke to...
Exactly.
My eureka, my epiphany came when I spoke to a policeman in Hyde Park after just putting off a joint.
Yeah.
That was my moment where I went, oh damn,
wow.
Okay.
Exactly.
I got to change the way I operate now.
Yeah.
What I mean? Yeah. But, for a long time, that's just exactly how it was. So once you break that mold, I think it's important, Yeah, for sure.
And what's your take on looking at that from the beginning of it? When you're going into a relationship, if you're going into a relationship, if you're thinking about settling down with a woman, if you're thinking about having kids with a woman, because a lot of you don't think about all of this that we're discussing going into it. But I think that is an important part of your of your path as well, you know. Oh, it's hard.
Not only is it hard, you know, like that question is for those relationship professionals.
Yeah.
Man, I just believe in love, all sweet love. You know, it feels good. It feels good.
Yeah.
You gotta, you know, at the end of the day, you got whatever. Everyone's got their own path.
Yeah.
You know, it's just. For me, I just felt like here in Australia, especially for us African men, we have a very difficult time, number one, especially if you come, like, if you've recently migrated, or, you know, even if you've been here, like, I've been here 17 years, but even if you've been here for a considerable amount of time, at the end of the day, you've got to understand that you've got to seek help.
Yeah.
There are systems here that we aren't used to, so you need clarity on certain things. You know, little things like if you want to see if you've been in a relationship and things are not working out with your ex and you want to see your child, don't go knock on her door.
Okay.
And demand to see the child. No, don't do that. You know, don't follow her up and down, all that nonsense. You know, keep that out. Focus on the child. If you want to see your child and you really want to see your child, then seek mediation. Go through mediation, go through that process. If you need help, because mediation, some things, listen, there's going to be tests along the way. I'm not going to sit here and
it's not a straightforward, you know? And walk in the park kind of thing.
There's tests along the way. There's things that you have to tweak. There's all things that you have to consider. Once a kid starts schooling, there's all that information that has to come about.
Exactly.
Which school you're going to go to, where you're going to go. You know, sometimes it might be work that transfers you to another place.
Yeah.
Moving, how it affects the kids, how it affects you. So all these things, there's ways that you can go through it. There's mediators that you can discuss those things with. But I just wanted to address the fact that, or rather bring it to people's attention, especially men here in Australia, that there is help.
Nazar, can I ask a question as well with what you're saying? Do you touched upon it just now? Do you think that these kind of cases are more prevalent with African men? Because we.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Think because we, I don't know whether it's because we socialize with African men, we see it more, or do you think that it's everybody? But
no. Why I said more so with African men? I mean, like we said, these statistics are for men in Australia, not African men. Men in Australia. And if we must be fair, predominantly, I would say they would be Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon men. You know? And maybe that's a little bit of a, you know. But, you know, African men, why I'm saying African men in particular is because, for example, we don't know what an AVO is. If you just migrated here from Africa in the last 8 years, you don't know what an AVO is.
What's an AVO?
So I'll give you an example. Uh-huh. You know, you've come to Australia. Uh-huh. You met in Africa.
Yeah. Which happens a lot.
Typical cliche, typical normal situation, okay?
Yes.
Australian girl goes overseas to Africa on a holiday. Uh-huh. Looking at the giraffes and everything. Oh, yes. She sees a beautiful, young, strong guy there, her age, whatever. They hit it off. Magic.
He's smitten.
It's been one of the most amazing adventures.
Yeah.
He decides, listen, I'm going back to Australia. We'll keep writing. They keep writing messages. She might go on 1 or 2 holidays.
Yeah.
By the time he gets to the 3rd holiday, she's like, listen, I really want you to come to Australia and come, you know, I love you. I want us to be together. And he's probably feeling the same.
Yeah.
He gets here. It's a different world. It's a different life altogether, you know? So he has to adapt. Adapting here, things happen anyway. 1, 2 kids, all of a sudden you separate. Okay?
Yeah.
It's all new to him. Now, coming from his thing, and for a lot of men, not only just African men, but at least Australian men know what an AVO is. Now, with African men, he'll go and knock on the door.
What's an AVO? Tell us what this AVO is. You just keep on bringing it up.
Well, I forget what it's called, but it's like a restrictive order, something, violence order or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, it's basically where they place restrictions on how far, how close you can go next to somebody.
Right.
When somebody's been violent. Now, violence can mean anything, can mean hitting somebody, but even just aggressive behavior can be deemed as violent.
Of course.
So I'm giving you the example that, you got knock on your ex's door. And she says to you, I don't want you to come here and knock. And you're like, well, I want to see my kids and blah. You understand what I mean? And then the next time you come again and you do that, she can take out an AVO.
Wow.
Because you're being aggressive.
Yeah.
She's asked you not to. And you might start shouting, these are my kids. Don't, because that's what happens. When you're going through all that, you get into a heat of the moment.
Of course.
And then you start yelling. And because culturally you think, well, I'm yelling, this is my wife, this is my kids that I want to see, I have every right to yell. What you don't understand is that is detrimental, could be detrimental towards your case.
Yeah.
So that your child can have the right to see you.
And Shane, for these African brothers of ours, where they're coming from, they do not know there is and it's not because they're naturally born violent or anything. No, it's just if you've grown up knowing one way of life your whole life, and you come here and then it's a facade. Everything, the curtains come down, you're like, this is reality. Okay, I have to be like this. There's this massive cultural clashes.
Well, you're trying to assimilate.
Yeah. There's these massive cultural clashes. And
exactly.
You're not dealing with it properly. Okay. When I say properly is that you just do not know the right channels. You do not know these organizations that you're speaking of. And I suppose in a way also, there's not a lot of support that happens to these so-called African brothers that are coming here. They don't seek out support as well.
We don't talk. Talk. So it doesn't matter where the brother's from, and sometimes it's not only in the African community. Sometimes it's in the Indian community. Sometimes in the Indonesian community. It can be in a lot of, that depends on the sort of community that the people come from. So for us, for example, if a brother comes from Guinea or
Togo,
Gambia, you know what I mean? And he's arrived and he's been here 3-4 years. He's got one child, but now he can't see his child. Automatically, in his head, he still believes that he can just go to the ex and go say, hey, I want to see my child.
Because he doesn't know, he doesn't fully understand or comprehend the laws and the process.
Exactly.
And, so he's just
There's
going
a process.
Yeah.
So the first process normally, and which probably is what he would have done initially, is, say, hey, I'd like to come and pick up my child. Or I'd like to see my child. Now, some mothers will go, yeah, sure. Some mothers will say, no, I'm doing something. You can't see him this week. You can see him next week. Straight away, that guy gets upset. No, I want to see my child now. How can you say this? Where are you? I'm coming right there now. All this. That is deemed as aggressive behavior because you can say, no, I don't want you to come here now. I'm spending time. I'm not going to tell you where I am. Or if I find out where you are, all that kind of nonsense. That's aggressive behavior. So we have to change that. But he doesn't realize that. Or when we arrive, and after being here for 3-4 years, my brother from Gambia doesn't realize that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden he pitches up at the house and he's like, no, I want to see my child. Even though she said next week.
Yeah.
She calls the cops, takes out an AVO. All of a sudden, that AVO means he can't come within X amount of, distance or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And it's taken seriously. So, once that happens, that starts building a negative case against you.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden, if you go down mediation, but you don't turn up for mediation sometimes, or even if you did turn up for mediation, there's still the question of the AVO. Because they'll always ask, okay, so there is an AVO, so why is that? Okay, so there was a little bit of an aggressive behavior. Maybe we'll have to monitor this. I don't know how Australian laws work. All I'm saying is, don't get into that. Just try and do the right thing from the beginning, which is don't start with this yelling at each other and stuff. If you know that you're in that situation, that you're in Australia, you haven't spoken to anyone because you don't feel comfortable going to talk to, we African men are proud that we don't feel comfortable going to talk to men. to other people about our problems. So we'll keep quiet, we'll bottle it up. But if you're going to do that, then make sure that don't get baited into these arguments with your ex-partner or the mother of the mother of your child. Don't get baited into arguments where it's not for the benefit of the child. It's just about, oh, you did this, oh, you did this, why didn't you do this? Well, you are this, you are that. That doesn't go anywhere, you know what I mean? And if you can just, try and get away from that energy and focus on the child, it becomes a lot easier. Yeah. And so I'll tell my brothers out there, when we're going through these things, just speak to somebody who's gone through it, but definitely seek help before acting out. Otherwise, for a lot of brothers, I know a lot of brothers, African brothers, that can't see their kids.
Yeah.
And they're trying really hard, and they can't see the kids. They're not allowed to.
Nazar,
they're not allowed to.
Let's try to think about it also now from the woman's perspective, right? You, a Caucasian woman, a white woman, you've gone to Africa, you've met this guy, you brought him here. There is a lot of that kind of like misunderstanding where they and also there is a lot of cases where the man goes out and has an affair. There is those kind of situations. I'm just saying this is the reality. This is let's not pretend.
Right.
This is the reality. These kind of things happen. So now there is that anger towards this guy. I've brought you from Africa. I brought you here. I've done this for you. I've done that for you. And what would your advice be? What would your advice be to those kind of women going through that? I mean, they need. I know we're talking about just about the children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think
it's such an interesting thing because. I was talking to these guys in Indonesia, in Bali, about it.
Uh-huh.
And the one guy says, no, I don't want to go to Australia. And he says, no, I'm happy here and I don't want. He says, if anything, she's more than welcome to come here and visit me here, but I'm not going to go there.
Did he mean I don't want to marry?
No, he didn't, like he said,
he just doesn't want to live here.
Girl that you were seeing. And when I asked him why, he says, because when the women come to like an exotic place like Bali or Africa on holiday, they are actually on holiday mode. They're not on work mode.
Okay.
They're not on 9 to 5 mode. So whatever they're experiencing in that place, that's your home where you live.
There's no stresses, anxieties of work and everything.
There's no anxieties about anything. When I say
so they're on holiday fun mode, side of them.
Everything is still fun.
Yeah, you've seen this fun side of them. Okay.
Exactly. Now that exotic place that wherever they met, and it doesn't always have to be a cliche of an exotic place. Sometimes you meet in other countries as well, but I'm just using that cliche because that happens a lot to the brothers that I've dealt with. They've come directly straight from Africa.
Yeah.
And they met their partners there and they came over here together. So when that happens, there's this thing that, I'm giving you more opportunities.
Okay.
Now, I won't say all women start off with that notion, no. But I would think the minute she says, come to Australia, there's this thing in the head that, there'll be more opportunities for you, and I'm there and we will be together and, it makes sense. And so the African dude will go, yeah, that makes sense. But the lifestyle that he's living in Africa, when he gets over to Australia or in London or wherever, it's chalk and cheese. She, on the other hand, is not on holiday mode anymore.
Yeah.
She's on work mode.
Yeah.
You understand? Then there's this, now once you're living overseas, there's this, it's just the way the society is, you got to attain, okay, now we need to buy a house, now we need to buy a car, now we need to do this, and we need to, pressures of finance start getting in his way. He starts contemplating now, was this really a good move? Like, I'm not happy. I don't really have that many friends, work is difficult because everybody just speaks English perfectly and I'm still learning how to speak English. And,
And I think also
the support.
I think you've touched on something there just a second ago, and you're just saying this as well. Support the African men where they come from. They are coming from communities. They're used to communities. They come here, and it's that very lonely life for them as well. So there's this massive challenge on their part as well.
Yeah.
So there is a lot that they're going through.
To provide, because you don't want to come all the way from Africa here, you spend 10 years and you go back with a pair of Nikes. No, you got to send money back home. Sometimes you got your mom, sisters, their kids to look after. It's not just as simple as me just coming here.
Yeah.
We're not an individualistic society.
We don't come from an individualistic society there.
If an Australian woman moves to Africa, she doesn't have to do anything for the people back home. Right. She just has to concentrate on her mindset in Africa.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean? For us, it's very different. When we come here, we have to always think, okay, back home, because we're going to get those phone calls. You know them. They come at nice times.
Of course.
Hey, I like this and like that. Oh, the stories are nice also, some of them.
Exactly.
So, that's the difference with us. And then when we come here, all of a sudden you're trying, but you're not the alpha anymore. You're not the one. When you're at home as a man, you're the alpha there. You know what I mean? Your partner, from whichever country she comes from, is not only just relying on you, but looks to you to make certain decisions, and so you feel like you're contributing. You feel empowered in the relationship. I can protect her here. I can do. You come overseas to another country. You don't know anything. You're learning about everything. So everything is still shock for you. So your sense of empowerment is taken straight away. So all of a sudden you're here now and you're thinking, okay, what part do I play? Because now your partner that brought you to Australia or to London, she's the one with the job already when you arrive. She's bringing in money. You start feeling like, okay, no, I'm cleaning the house. I'm making food at the house because I'm still looking for a job. Eventually you find that job, and that's why communication is key. When you work together, then there's none of that rubbish of, I brought you here for a better opportunity. No, it's, we've made this decision to be together and do what's best for our family. That's when you're communicating well.
That's
working together, irrespective of what color, creed you're coming from.
Nazar, look, I want to close this up soon, but I need to ask you to give our brothers out there some advice. And when I say give them advice, I'm talking about not only after the divorce. I want you to give them advice during the relationship. When they have left Africa, they come in here. You never know. Maybe one of these brothers will be listening to this podcast one day. When they leave Africa, they with this woman, they're here today. And they're listening to this podcast right now, and then there's some brothers who are going through a divorce and they're completely clueless about what to do.
Right.
What's your advice from the marriage side and the divorce side? From the marriage side first, please, brother.
From the marriage side first, lesson number one that I learned, you're not marrying an African woman.
Okay.
So don't project your expectations on this beautiful partner of yours and put pressure. You're not marrying an African woman.
Yes.
So she's going to have to compromise and adapt because she's not marrying somebody from her country as well. It's about togetherness, that love together. So when you come here, you have to understand when you come from two different cultures, there's going to be things that you have to work through. Whether it's how to raise the kids, whether it's religion, whether it's traditions. I've got a situation where one friend, his partner is, she practices Buddhism and Ayurveda medicine, and he's very traditional, African in his cultural ways and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And they've brought that into the home, but she wants to practice that, the Buddhism, the Indian sort of philosophy.
Yeah.
And he's saying, wait, hold on. You're Australian, you white Australian, I'm African, and you're bringing in another culture into our home. Why, so there's this thing about culture and men trying to preserve their culture, African men. But there's also this thing that African men need to understand, that you never married an African woman.
Yeah.
You married a woman from overseas, and when you've gone to their country, there are certain things that you might not do back home, but you might have to consider doing here.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of it. That's part of you're making your relationship work. If you're going to stick onto those, that mindset of how it was back home, or, back home, this is what the women do, or this is how women behave, or this, well, then you should have married an African woman from back home. Simple. Let's be straight. It's that simple.
Yes, exactly.
And if you didn't, well, then now you've got to compromise, mate.
Yeah.
It's that simple. When you get in that relationship, my advice to the brothers that are going through that split, that separation, please, even though your empress, the mother of your children, may be going through resentment, may be bitter, may be angry, may be whatever, or she just doesn't want you anymore, don't get into the harshness, because you have to work together for the betterment of the children. You're bringing up your children.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful.
Okay? Let's work together for that. And after you've done that and things don't work out, it's important for brothers like myself and those who have, come here, gone through the system, gone through the divorce, to talk to other brothers and share our knowledge and be that vehicle of saying, hey, listen, if you want someone to talk to, let's have that conversation. What's going on with you, my young brother? Oh, I'm going through this and that and this and that. Okay, how can we work together? It's important that we speak as African men. We talk about what's going on. And those of us that have gone through it, let us also share that knowledge. It doesn't have, it's not law. Whatever I've said today is not law. That's not, no, I know it's just my experience.
Yeah.
It's what I've gone through.
And in your experience, for an African man who's completely lost, doesn't have a lot of African friends because he doesn't know how to seek them out, because not every African man is just a social butterfly.
Right.
How does he seek knowledge? How does he seek the right channels? I mean, what steps does he take? Because he's the one that's in the most danger.
Right. So that's what I mean. There are services out there. Understand that you can contact people like Relationships Australia, for example. They mediate.
Could you start off with even Centrelink and get advice there?
Centrelink is only for welfare. I would say somewhere like Legal Aid, but Legal Aid will still push you. Everyone in Australia, the law will push you to seek mediation first, because you need to talk.
Yeah.
You have to communicate.
There's nothing wrong with that. Try and get to an agreement. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's the best place to start, because once you start there, you've opened dialogue. It's no more about, hopefully it doesn't get into you did this and you did that. No, it doesn't get into that anymore.
Yeah.
It starts, okay, how do you work a plan forward so that we're both going to be in the children's lives or the child's life? How do we co-parent together for the betterment, to bring the best out of our beautiful child or children? That's what mediation does.
Yeah.
So for a lot of brothers out there that are going, even if you don't want to speak to that woman, or the woman doesn't want to speak to that man because think about the children, seek mediation. At the end of the day, whoever doesn't show up, whoever doesn't man up, whoever doesn't make the appointments, who doesn't make what do you call it?
The first step?
The commitments that is made.
Yeah,
so,
the commitment.
I'm going to be there every Tuesday, or every second week. I'm going to spend the weekend with my child. If you stick to those and avoid the fighting, they seek mediation straight away. Even if you know that for the first time, if that other partner says, "Oh, you can't see the children. I don't want you to see them now or next
rock
week."
Up.
No, you can't rock up.
I mean, sorry.
What you do straight away is you contact mediation.
Yeah, but when you say commitment, you need to rock up. When you commit to a date, you need to rock up.
Right, but you don't rock up at the house. If she says, you can't see your child next week or whatever, even though by law she's not allowed to say that, because the child has every right to see you. Because the child is in her care, she has a right to who comes within her space. So this is where the trickiness is. That's why I say, if that ever happens and, you phone your ex, any of the brothers out there, you phone your ex and she's like, "No, I don't want you to see the child," or he's making it really hard for you to see the child, just send a little message, email, or however you communicate, letting her know you are going to contact a mediation service and they will be in contact with her. Then you just contact the mediation service and they will contact her and they'll say, listen, we set up a meeting, Naz or whoever is ready, John Smith is available on next week, Tuesday, between 2 and 3 o'clock. Can you make it?
Yeah.
If she says yes, well, she's committed to that. If she doesn't show, they mark that. Then you make another one. Sometimes some women just won't show for 3 or 4. I was lucky that our communication was, we both wanted the betterment for the children.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes, some people will say, yeah, they'll agree, and then they don't show. And then the second one happens, they don't show. If that happens, don't get disheartened, because you're still doing the right thing. Keep reaching out and creating some more. It'll get to a certain point where I think it's on the second or third, if the person doesn't show, that then Relationship to Australia now does some sort of report or whichever mediation. I don't know. Different organizations got different systems, the way they work. But they then put it forward for which could end up to court orders or whatever the case. I mean, there's a whole process, and you can find out from whichever service the process, or Legal Aid Australia, they can give you information on what the processes are when it comes to kids. But what I do say is avoid the confrontation at any cost. Yeah. Even though you feel it's your right or whatever, however you're going to word it, or it's not, avoid confrontation.
Yeah.
Seek that help, seek that avenue, seek that service, because at least then you're following the rules and you get what you want, which is at the end of the day to be able to see your child and to be able to co-parent. Sometimes it's hard initially, but when you work at it, it happens. Trust me, it happens. Rather that than get to the stage where you can't see your child and you're living in Australia.
I think from both perspectives, they need to, from man and from the woman, they need to both understand that it's really more advantageous for you guys to have better communication for the children.
It's about the kids.
If the kids see a healthy, and look, no matter what he's done, no matter what she's done,
that's not the point.
She may have been cruel to you, Mr. Man, and he may have had affairs, whatever. Look, I'm sorry, that might be a bad example, but at the end of the day, the children will still look at that man as a father, and the children will still look at that woman as the mother, no matter what. So if you keep a positive relationship about the two of you and your communication, the children grow up to be in a more stable, loving.
That's it. And and there's a lot of success stories out there, bro.
Yeah.
It's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of wonderful
co-parenting. Divorce doesn't mean doom and gloom.
No, because you realize that people, you grow apart. Everybody, got different ways of happiness, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you share a child together, then you have an equal responsibility to co-parent and bring out the best for that child, the best that you can do. At least, or whatever you can do, the best to your ability. Some parents can't be there all the time. Whatever is the best to your ability, you want, but it's important that you communicate. There's no two ways about it. If that communication is not there, then you have to leave it to mediators to start that conversation. And hopefully over time, the communication gets better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's the only, if communication is not good initially, that's the only way. Seek mediation and work at it that way. And it progresses, until you find out, okay, there is a system in place and the child has the rights. That's simple. Yeah.
Beautiful. Nazar, thank you very much. I don't know if there's any look, we haven't got any links or anything to provide people or anything like that on these
no, but you can seek the like the information that we speak about. You can seek it on Beyond Blue or 21 Fathers. There's organizations out there, in terms of mediation. You can just Google mediation services in whatever, Victoria or Sydney or wherever you are. A list will come up, and just have a chat with them. Explain your situation. They will tell you how they can help. There is that. It's just important for us to talk. Let's start that conversation.
Exactly.
Whether it's whatever's going on between us mentally, emotionally, as men, let's start that conversation.
Yeah.
Once we start that conversation, it's easier for us to understand how to deal with these things, whether it's, the actual divorce and separation, or whether it's children, access to children, all those kind of things. It's easier for us if we're open to that dialogue.
Beautiful.
But if we bottle stuff in, it's very hard to have that dialogue.
100%. 100%. All right, sir.
One love, brother.
One love. I'll leave you guys in Queensland to go and hug each other because it's legal there.
Trust me. Trust me. In fact, I might go fishing now. You know, midnight fishing is a good time to go fishing.
We'll still be stuck here in Victoria, not even allowed to look at our neighbors without a mask.
You know what? It's tricky out there, but hopefully everyone plays their part.
Yeah.
And, especially this COVID, just be strong. There's a lot of stress in the home.
Yeah.
Communicate. Try and take a walk if you can.
Thank you.
Or do something creative.
Thank you.
If the pressure's there, try and do something creative. Simple.
Thank you very much, sir.
One love. Thank you, my brother.
You look after all the family and everybody. Send the love to all the family out there.
You too, man. Respects to everyone out there in Melbourne. Stay strong.
Ladies and gentlemen, Wise, Gifted and Black, Nazar Osman. Thank you very much.
Blessings. Blessings. Blessings.